Hello, it's Warrior Grapevine, and today I'd like to welcome you to the first episode of Warriors What If. This is basically a new series I'm doing, exploring ideas and concepts, basically of alternate universes for the Warrior Cat series. Um, and for our first episode, I wanted to basically focus on how you can add your own characters into the world of Warrior Cats, and how you can do that in an involved way and an uninvolved way. So, for uninvolved, these cats basically have no, generic, they don't affect the plot in any way. They're there in the background. They make comments on different events that are happening around them, but they don't typically are involved in them unless there's a battle and they're mentioned like fighting another character. That's basically uninvolved. And then in an involved way would be them changing the plot in some way, like having their existence would change, like for example, Hollyleaf not getting exiled. So in this episode, we are focused on the idea of what if Sandstorm and Fireheart, or Firestar, had more kits to their litter, basically. So they had Squirrel Flight and Leaf Pool, and then they had another litter, and in this litter, I'm saying they had 3 kittens. So it's just basically that idea, because in the original series, they just had Leaf Pool and Squirrel Flight, and that was it. And when I was younger, I always wondered why they didn't have more, because there was an opportunity to do that. And I believe that would have been at the either during Starlight or after Starlight, from the New Prophecy. And so focusing on that idea, I was like, how could these characters come to be? And I thought, well, they would probably either be conceived before or after the Great Journey. And then they were growing up a little bit during that period. In between the New Prophecy and the Power of Three, they would start off as apprentices, and then like Daisy's kits, they grew up after that, and became warriors during the Power of Three. And so to look into that, I basically looked at summaries on the wiki to figure out how to add these characters in, because I do remember reading the books, but it's been a little while. And looking at the summaries, I concluded that would be a good time frame for them. They could either, be before Daisy's arrival, and then like be kittens, and then, or they were born later. So once I picked a time period, I was thinking about like who could they become mates to, who could they be apprenticed to, and so a large portion of that I was looking at the allegiances and seeing who had apprentices and who didn't. So for our first cat, we have Golden Petal, and I kind of come up with like a relationship diagram here. They basically are a supportive figure to Lion Blaze, but they are apprenticed to Birchfall because Birchfall didn't have an apprentice at that time period. They have a potential love interest of Ice Cloud or Mouse Whisker, because I decided you could do either. And if I'm going to make characters, I like to expand on the series in the ways that the authors don't, which is adding characters that are gay, and I enjoy that. And Golden Petal, if you want him to be able to basically affect the plot, I think a major way to do that in this time frame is having that character either be involved in the Dark Forest or not involved in the Dark Forest, basically. So I thought it would be a good thing, like a good opportunity, you know, for plot advancements to have Golden Petal, the one that looks the most like Firestar, be mentored secretly by Tiger Star. So that's why I did what I did. And then you have Maple Leaf. They could be apprenticed to Sorreltail or Stormfur, but during, I believe, Outcast, that is when Stormfur and Brook go back to the mountains. So you'd have to have them be a little bit older than Daisy's kits in order to go that route. So I very quickly was like, okay, they're just apprenticed to Sorreltail because they don't have anybody anyway. And then they are supportive to Hollyleaf, and their potential love interest is Hazeltail and Foxleaf. And finally, you got Falconstorm. I decided they'd be apprenticed to Whitewing or Brook, and they act as a mentor figure to Jayfeather. And their love interest, they could either have a similar love interest to Golden Petal, or in the end just end up alone because asexual people exist, basically. Let's see here. So I'm thinking that if you have them apprenticed to Stormfur and Brook, that they would have to become warriors sometime during the events of Book 2. But if you want them to be a little bit younger, they could be made warriors during Book 3 while the characters are off in the mountains. And that's another way to make them like uninvolved character developments, because, you know, it's just something that happens in the background that you don't see, but you're like, okay, so they're warriors now, type of thing. But basically, they were born, they get evacuated with Sandstorm and Daisy during that Badger fight in the New Prophecy. While they're apprentices, they play and give advice to the Power of 3 characters. But you can have them not really affect the plot in any way. They're just there as a supportive figure, basically. Or you can have them give advice that changes the plot. During Omen of the Stars, you could kind of see them interacting with their love interests, but the thing with their love interests is that, during Omen of the Stars, you could kind of notice them being close with those potential love interests, or they could start noticing Golden Petal training in the Dark Forest type of thing. And one of the things about Ice Cloud, Mouse Whisker, Hazeltail, and Foxleaf is that they ended up dying of green cough after the events of the Omen of the Stars. And then but they died of green cough in between that and like the novella Tiger Star Storm, Bramble Star Storm, my bad. But yeah, you could have them just mostly witness the events of Omen of the Stars, or like I said, noticing them training in the Dark Forest type of thing and changing the plot that way. And then after that, they could still be potential witnesses to the plot, or they could also die of green cough with Daisy and Burncloud's kids. Or you could have them die in the flood during Bramble Star Storm. There's lots of ways that you can change a story and like insert your own characters into them. And like I said, you could have them involved or uninvolved. It's just one of those things that you got to play with and experiment with. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed listening to me ramble about this topic. Um, I know I definitely enjoyed coming up with my designs for these characters. I wanted them to mostly look like Firestar and Sandstorm for these guys. Because I know that Leaf Pull and Squirrel Flight, they kind of differ a little bit from Sandstorm and Firestar. Um, so that's why it's fun to play with ideas like this. Maybe in episode 2, I'll focus on something different. We'll just have to see. This is just one big idea that I've had, and I've been focusing on for like a month now. But anyway, I'll see you in the next video sometime, hopefully soon. Bye bye!